All right, we're going to have some fun tonight. If tonight is anything like what's going on backstage, we're going to have a riot tonight. Good evening, everyone. I'm Steve McLaughlin, president of the Cooper Union, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here to the historic Great Hall. For those of you joining us for the first time, the Cooper Union is one of the nation's best colleges for students pursuing degrees in architecture, art, and engineering, each connected to the others through a focus on the humanities and social sciences. And on behalf of our students, we're in the midst of working to restore the legacy of our founder, Peter Cooper, who believed that education should be as free as air and water. Through the generosity of so many, we're making great strides towards eliminating the burden of tuition for all undergraduates. In fact, today, every student receives a half tuition scholarship, and nearly 60% of our students, including every senior, attends tuition free. So if you're inspired by our goal, please join us. There's a QR code on the back of your program. Scan it to learn more about how we do this. In this very room, for more than 165 years, the Cooper Union has provided a free public forum for artists, scientists, inventors, and visionaries from all sectors and fields to connect with New Yorkers, shaping the city and beyond. I'm pleased to say that this remains a place where innovative and critical voices meet. It's one of the many reasons I love this extraordinary institution. In fact, later this week, I'll be officially inaugurated as Cooper's 14th president. It's an incredible honor, and tonight's program is really the first of our celebrations. Tonight's program is also very special because it's our John J. Iselin Memorial Lecture, which honors the 10th president of Cooper Union, J. Iselin. Jay's wife, Lee, is with us here this evening, and she's the driving force behind this lecture series. Lee, we are so incredibly grateful for all you and your family do for the Cooper Union, so thank you. Well, as I said, we're in for a treat. And our guests are here in precisely the right time to be discussing Apple's story. Here's why. The founder of this college was Peter Cooper. He was a visionary in the worlds of education, civic leadership, and philanthropy. And he was also a key investor and leader in the American Telegraph Company, which laid the first wired transatlantic cable in 1866. An Apple precursor, I guess we'll find out. With us tonight is 7-time Emmy Award-winning journalist David Pogue. You know him from his stories on CBS Sunday Morning and as a New York Times best-selling author. He's written about Apple his entire career, including his new book, Apple, The First 50 Years. David will be joined by Lauren Goode, senior correspondent at Wired, who has covered technology for 15 years, and by Joanna, an Emmy Award-winning tech journalist whose forthcoming book is I'm Not a Robot, My Year Using AI to Do Almost Everything. So let's get things started. Please welcome David Pogue.
Hey, you guys. Don't mind the pillars. So great to meet you. Thanks for coming out tonight. This device here is known as a Lincoln lectern. What's unusual about this Lincoln lectern is that Lincoln used it right here, along with 10 other US presidents have stood right here, so no pressure. Can we cut to the slides there, Steve? So we are here nominally to celebrate the release of this book, which took 2 years of my life, and I didn't see my wife or children. But now it's done, and not only did it just come out, but I'm very happy to report, so did the New York Times bestseller list. And number 6, ladies and gentlemen, number 6. As for numbers 1 through 5, well, they have something in common. If we were to remove the hot female celebrity memoir and the ones with titillating titles like Getting Naked and Stripped Down, I'm number 1! But seriously, this has been a very educational journey. I've learned some things about the book industry. And one is that if you want to be on the bestseller list, you really got to think about your subtitle. This was not the right one. There we go. It's been the most unbelievable ride. Apple fans, as you may know, has been called a cult, and it's a giant cult. And when this book hit the stands, the most darling, amazing, flattering thing happened. People started taking pictures of their books on social media. Arrived today, and posing it with their Macs or their Apple Ones or their AirPods. Absolutely, like hundreds of these. And some of them, like, this guy's got lost in delivery, so he killed the time by having AI make pictures of what his book is doing. And another guy has a complete museum of every Mac that's ever been made. It is gorgeous. And because this guy obviously has taste and class, he actually bought 3 copies of the book. One so that we can see the front cover, one so that we can see the back cover, and obviously he's not going to touch those in his museum, so he bought a 3rd ebook version so he can actually read the damn thing. So deeply flattering. This whole journey began 2 years ago when the Mac celebrated its 40th anniversary. I was invited to host an event at the Computer History Museum in Mountain View, California, where they brought back the original engineers who made the Mac in 1984. So there's Bill Atkinson and Steve Capps, Andy Hertzfeld. On the right is Susan Kerr, who drew the original icons and original fonts pixel by pixel. It was an amazing night. It was like a love fest, like Woodstock. People were screaming and crying and laughing. There was PTSD. So that was a really memorable night. And then a few weeks later, my wife, Nikki, she's here somewhere, right there. That's Nikki. She woke me up in the middle of the night having had a dream. She's like, I'm sleeping. She's like, David, I just had the best idea for a book. I'm like, what? And she goes, that Mac thing was such a hit. You should do a book about Apple's first 50 years. And I literally, I'm ashamed to say, shut her down. I'm like, dude, you missed that. That anniversary's gone. Go back to sleep. And she's like, oh. So in the morning, I looked it up. She was right. It was 2 years hence, which is exactly the right amount of time to write a 600-page book. If you're crazy. So I have no photograph of that critical moment when Nikki woke me up in the middle of the night. So I asked ChatGPT to reproduce the image. Looked like I've had a heart attack. The quality of this rendition tells me right now that we have nothing to fear from the future of AI. It's not going to take us over. So thus began an amazing journey. I interviewed 150 people, inside and outside Apple. At the top left, there's Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple. There's Johnny Ive next to him. There's John Sculley, who was the CEO for 10 years. There's Bill Atkinson, who did the original graphic interface on the Lisa and then the Mac. He tragically died of pancreatic cancer 4 months after the interview. 4 people we lost, either they died or became unable to speak since those interviews. Makes me very glad I did this book when I did. The hard part was the last 200 pages of the book, because Apple does not let current employees speak to journalists unless they have some PR point they're trying to make. So I asked them, is there a way you could make an exception for this book, which is going to be like the ultimate definitive history of Apple? Can you let me interview these guys? And it took 6 months of back and forth and persuasion. But in the end, incredibly, they said, yes, you can come out here to Apple Park. We'll schedule 4 days of our interviews. And we'll give you access to our archives, which was just like, oh my God, I am so lucky. So that was, otherwise the last 200 pages would have been blank. So it was an incredible experience. The book is in color. You can't do a book about, the iMac and the iPhone in black and white. You just can't. So all these cool archived photos there on the lower left, that's the cream soda computer. That was Woz's first computer before the Apple I, way before. All these, very few people remember that Bill Gates joined an Apple offsite and played the dating game with Steve Jobs. What? I found the designer, Robert Brunner, who hired Johnny Ive. He was the head of the design studio before Johnny Ive. In fact, he said, on my grave, it's going to say, "Here lies the guy who hired Johnny Ive." And he dug up these Kodak photo CDs of all these cool prototypes they designed that never got released. Just the coolest damn stuff. All right, so we are here to talk about Apple. Apple right now has 2.5. What did I do wrong? God bless you too. Thank you. A true Apple fan, I guess. So 2.5 billion people right now are carrying Apple devices. If you do the math, that's 31% of the global population. If they were in a country, it would be the largest country on Earth, bigger than China or India. Apple sells 220 million iPhones a year. That brings them in $1 million of revenue every 90 seconds. So in the time I've been standing here, Apple has out-earned all of us put together. And they were the first company in the world to hit $1 trillion market cap, the value of all its stock, and then $2 trillion, and then $3 trillion. Now they're approaching $4 trillion market cap. The story of Apple's first 50 years is long and filled with drama and humor and stories. You can read about the book. I'll be signing it when we're done here. But I'm not here to sell books. But in the short term, if you want a quick snapshot of Apple's story, it's this. It's a rise, a fall, and a big rise. That's what makes it such a great story. That fall was in 1996 when they were 6 weeks from bankruptcy. And now they're this giant megalithic corporation. I fudged it a little bit. It's more like that. Actually, it's really more like this. So Apple I, Apple II, Macintosh, Steve Jobs is out, PowerBook, Newton, Steve Jobs comes back, iMac, iPod, iPhone, Tim Cook comes in, Apple Watch, AirPods, Vision Pro, and all the services. Thank you and have a good night. All right, I would now like to introduce my two esteemed panelists. This is so cool because all three of us are essentially experts. So there's no MC. It's going to be experts interviewing experts. There was no rehearsal. I have no idea how it's going to go. But first, Lauren Goode is a senior correspondent with Wired. She covers Silicon Valley and startups and AI and Silicon, and of course, Apple. She's done time at The Verge and Recode and the New York Times, and she does everything. She's on podcasts and television. She won an Emmy for her web series. I'll just give you a little clip to introduce to you how funny and cool Lauren is.
Here are my 5 rules for smartwatch etiquette. I'm a really hard worker and I'm super focused. It's one of my best assets when I get started on something. I stick with it. What was I saying?
Lauren Goode, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be here soon. And Joanna Stern is also here with us. She has been at the Wall Street Journal for 14 years. Before that, she did stints at the New York Times and The Verge and Engadget. And I have a video clip of her too, but it's not one of her amazing, funny Wall Street Journal videos that have won an Emmy and 2 Loeb Awards for journalism. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the video in which I, David Pogue, discovered Joanna Stern. It was 2009. She was just out of college. She was an up-and-coming intern figure, and I cast her in one of my weekly New York Times videos. I hope she still comes to the stage after seeing this.
What? Who is that?
'Tis I, the sleep fairy.
The sleep fairy?
Yes, the sleep fairy. I go from house to house spreading sleep.
I thought you were here to rob me.
Don't worry, I brought you something. It's like a sleep laboratory built right into this alarm clock. It measures what state of sleep you're in, and then in the morning you can find out what happened when you were out.
Thank you for visiting my humble abode.
Go back to sleep.
Okay, thanks, sleep fairy, for teaching me how to be a better sleeper.
Now that's tech comedy. All right, Lauren and Joanna, come on out.
I'm so sorry. Joanna was just waking me up back there. So.
At least one of us hasn't aged.
Wait a minute.
As the sleep fairy.
How does that feel seeing that after all these years?
I found the email. We were emailing earlier today. I found the email I sent to my dad when that aired, and I said, I hope I haven't ruined my career forever. And the good news for both of us is that I didn't.
I mean, is there some self-interested universe where the Pogue dad joke ethos of tech videos influenced you?
There definitely is.
Wow!
Honest. I swear on your book. Where is the book? Do you have any books here? Are we here for the book?
After we're done here, yeah.
I swear on your book, it absolutely did. I know this is not an interview about my career, but the way you did early on in my formative years, you bridged humor and tech and information was absolutely a big impact on my career.
Well, I'm deeply flattered. That's really all I wanted to get out of tonight, so thank you very much. All right, so we are gathered here today to talk about Apple and its first 50 years. Just so we know where we're all coming from, do you guys consider yourselves Apple cultists? Do you have blue bubbles when you text?
Well, no, I don't necessarily. Yes, I'm literally carrying my iPhone with me right now because it is a tether that I can't let go. And also, I would say, like, I wouldn't necessarily call myself a fan of Apple because I'm always hesitant to say I'm a fan of the technology companies that I write about. But I'm definitely one of those people who, when a family member is having any kind of troubleshooting issue whatsoever with their machine, I'm like, just go to the Apple store. Please, just go to the Apple store.
Joanna?
I have a lot of the same feelings as we can't be fans, right? We have to be impartial, but I don't think I have bought a product from another company in a long time.
Wow.
Not even a Pixel phone.
Not even a Pixel phone, no. There's small accessories that Apple doesn't make, but Apple doesn't make the Airport Express anymore, sadly, right?
Yeah.
So I've got other non-Apple products. But most of my house runs on Apple products.
So is it safe to say, and I'll admit that I'm not equally good on Android as I am on the iPhone. Is that true of you too? Would you admit that you're not as good on Android?
Not as good as in, like, not actually as adept at using it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
It's like as good of a person.
I'm like good. Like, are we moralizing it now? But
I mean, there's
yes.
like the Lauren Goode joke to make there.
But I'm bummed. I haven't heard that one before.
Never. Well, I use Android a lot in testing, and there are a lot of things I prefer about Android, especially if you live in the Google ecosystem. So Gmail is just far superior on the Android phone still to this day. The Google search experience, Google AI is better on an Android phone. So I think I'm probably just as good, but I don't know. Someone here wanted to do a face-off.
Let's do a cool thing. Will you raise your hand if you do not own an Apple product? Leave the room now! That's
All
impressive.
are welcome here.
They thought they were going to the latest Avengers movie, I guess. They wandered into the wrong building. All right, so given that, where do you rate Apple's merit as the founder of this cult? In other words, is it justified? Is the stuff they do that much better to merit this kind of fandom?
Go ahead.
We have another chair. Come on up, sir. Yeah.
Well, as I've been reading your book and looking at the lovely pictures.
How was
the
it,
beautiful
Joanna?
Pictures. It's a beautiful book. I suggest you buy this book. Did you know we are here for a book? I have been thinking a lot about Apple's history, and if Apple had not had that history of the underdog, of the comeback, would we be as big of fans? Not us. We are not. We're not fans. We're not fans. But would there be this following of this company, right? Because there are many other tech companies that make as good of tech products, in the sense of the hardware is great, the software can be great. Yes, we should talk about how great Apple has been in the Tim Cook era of making the ecosystem work so well together, and that really has been its superpower. But few companies have a story like this. And so most fans, they come after there's a story.
I agree with that, but I also have a take that's maybe a little bit more pragmatic and slightly more boring, which is that, and this is based partly on a conversation I had shortly after I moved to Silicon Valley back in 2013. I'd been living in New York for a long time. I moved to the Valley I was covering tech, and I had a conversation with someone who had worked at Apple, and this person basically said, look, Apple is an operations company. It's not a consumer tech company. And the fact that Apple is able to ship what it ships at such a regular cadence, despite everything else that might be going on in the world, chaos, geopolitical chaos, supply chain issues, literally earthquakes, like anything, and Apple ships, like when it says it's going to ship something is absolutely remarkable. And I think that's why it's story worthy.
You know, the story thing, so I am an Apple fan. I started being an Apple fan when it was an underdog situation, when the Mac had 2%. This is when Apple said we have 5% market share. I learned they actually had 2% market share. And yet Apple is the one that had taste. They're the ones that said no to dumb features. And I remember being part of this army, the user groups. You know, I helped out with the New York Mac user group, my first tribe in New York City. Yes! 4 of us are still alive. And back then, it was a David versus Goliath thing. Like, we were the underdog, but we had the better product. I mean, I would go to these parties, and I'm like, oh my God, the new whatever, iMac or whatever, and they'd be like, yeah, but I can get a Dell for $400. I felt like punching them in the face. Like, you have no taste, right?
You were like, go to the Apple store.
I had the $400 Dell.
Oh, sorry.
She was famous for reviewing them, actually.
I was.
That's really, yeah.
I was.
But what's weird is that there's part of the Apple fandom that still feels that underdogishness, even though it's now Apple's the overlord. It's kind of weird. We forgot to notice that they're now the Borg.
And
Okay, I guess that's it for my questions.
something about Pippin?
The other thing I will say is that this book concludes with a chapter called Through Lines, which is like, what hasn't changed in 50 years? And there are many old companies, but I mean, Samsung started out as a dried fish vendor. Nokia was a paper mill. Like, what other old company is doing exactly the same thing? So Apple was founded by Woz and Jobs to bring complicated technology and the power of it into the hands of the masses. That was it. And that is still their mission. Like, interviewed Tim Cook 2 weeks ago. He told me that's the mission, bring advanced technology into everybody's hands with power. I mean, that's really extraordinary. You could put the entire Apple product line onto a ping pong table. Like, think of Samsung and Sony. I mean, it would take a room this size, right? It's kind of remarkable.
Yeah.
What about Microsoft?
Well, I don't think of them as a hardware company so much. So, yeah, you could.
As someone who covers chips, I'd have to probably throw AMD in there because they've been around since 1969 and they are still making CPUs. So there are a few hardware companies technically, but I think what you're describing in terms of consumer technology that has such this cultural attaché, is that the right word? Am I saying that correctly? And impact on our lives and is like really still very consumer focused. I can't think of another company that's done what Apple's done.
What you can take 3 minutes to think about this. What has the effect of Apple been on the world? Okay, come back in 3 minutes.
I did an interview about it today, so I have been thinking about it all day since the interview at 11 o'clock this morning. I think that you said cultural is really important because, and you highlight this in the book, and we all know this as followers of the company, but Apple's never the first to introduce a product, right? We know this as the through line of Apple products. Not the first on smartphones, not the first on MP3 players, not the first on tablets, not the first on earbuds, not the first on, well, let's not talk about the VR headset. And they are the first, though, in many of those cases to break through to a cultural mainstream audience. And so I think that is the impact and the legacy of the company.
Did you know, I didn't until I did this book, that Apple introduced the first digital camera? Did you know that Apple introduced Wi-Fi? Wi-Fi! I mean, we knew about the mouse, we knew about laser printing, we knew about home networking, but like Wi-Fi? Yeah.
Can I ask you both, what was your favorite, or what has been your favorite Apple product you've ever reviewed?
Are we allowed to say iPhone? I mean, seems like a lame answer.
I don't think it's lame. I mean, if that's your answer.
My answer is not the iPhone.
It's not.
No. I'm writing an essay for The Verge right now about this. I don't know. I probably can talk about that. I don't know. It was the MacBook Air.
Oh, yeah.
For me, it was the MacBook Air. And it's funny that you mentioned the $400 Dell because I was a Windows laptop reviewer. And it wasn't the first, and I was going to say, can I make one critique of the book?
Yeah.
I think that MacBook Air deserved more than the one page.
Dude, I had 50 years and 600 pages.
Does anyone think the book should be longer?
Yes.
May I suggest for the next version, the next edition, there can be the MacBook Air, just like
You
2
can write
pages.
the foreword to it, actually.
Yes,
and then
that's
the
such a
foreword
nice
can just be
idea.
about the MacBook Air.
That's such a great idea. Let me get to my point about the MacBook Air. You did not know what you were getting into inviting us here. So I was reviewing Windows laptops, and I think that's actually how we met. I think I pitched you. I said, I really know about these Windows netbooks. They're really, and David was writing his popular column for the Times, and I was such an admirer from afar. I was like, I know all about these. I can help. Really cool on my end. And so I was covering the Windows laptop world, and the MacBook Air comes out and really does blow everyone away, right? This thing is so sleek. It has flash storage. It's wildly overpriced. It is not a mainstream product.
And Steve Jobs on stage revealed it by pulling it out of an interoffice envelope.
Amazing, right? This is an amazing showmanship. This was just an amazing introduction. And the first product flops. I mean, I think we can agree. I don't remember your review specifically. I probably should have read that. But then they do this update in 2010. And I remember reviewing that laptop, and I had been reviewing Windows laptops for so many years before that, and it made me realize they all felt like crap. And that product was such a well-rounded, amazing product for $1,300 at the time. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And that was my first review where I really understood the power of Apple.
Was it unibody aluminum?
Yes,
at the time it was like
that,
the first
2010
one.
was the unibody
Yeah.
aluminum.
And do you remember what the battery life was like?
I think at that point it was I just finished writing this, and they said it was 6 to 7 hours.
That's pretty amazing.
Right. And that was the first video, too, that you kind of, we all remember the Johnny Ive videos, but he really made an appearance in that video talking about that product. Obviously did on the iPhone, but he loved the aluminum.
Aluminium.
Yeah.
It was, as I recall, it did have a hard drive, but for more money, you could opt for a totally solid state, which now you can't even get an Apple laptop that has a spinning hard drive.
On the first Air, you could pay $1,000 more to get the solid state. Yeah. But then once they did the update in 2010, it was always solid state, which was a huge move for the industry. And this was the point that I made in this piece, is everyone followed, right? Everyone followed that MacBook Air. The PC industry followed on every bit. The aluminum, the solid state drive, all of it, they followed.
That keeps happening. And those of you who are going to stay for the book signing, at a bookstore event, this guy, Bruce G., came up to me. He was the PowerBook product manager in 1990. And he said, we build these transparent engineering prototypes so that engineers can study heat patterns inside. And I've brought the one from the first PowerBook, the PowerBook 140, and you can have it to take on your book tour if you want to show people. So I've got it. And you're welcome to play with it in Florida. It's see-through. It's like pre-iMac transparent plastic. I'll have it with me later. But what's so revolutionary about the PowerBook that people forget, until it came along, all laptops, including Apple's portable, remember the 20-pound portable, their keyboards were up flush with the front edge of the laptop. And the reason was, in those days, people were still intimidated by technology. They wanted it to be reminiscent of a typewriter. But what it meant was there was no room for a trackball. So people would, on their Windows, or I guess it was DOS in those days, on your DOS laptops, you'd have a trackball sticking off the edge. And, the flight attendant comes through with the drink cart, and boom, It's gone. So there's this guy in Apple, and I found him and I interviewed him, who was not even on the design team. He was a systems integrator. His job is to figure out how the hard drive and the circuit board and the battery all go together. And he had worked on the portable, and he was really upset about it. And he cut apart a photograph of the portable and started moving the components around. And it was his idea to push the keyboard back against the screen, which did three things. It gave you palm rests. It means the trackball can be right in the front center where either thumb can reach it without lifting your hands from the keys. And it means that the heavy stuff, like the battery and the hard drive, can now move here under the front lip so that the laptop no longer flips off your knees when you're bouncing it that way. And as you say, within a year, every laptop ever made since 1992 has had that design. And they remember when Phil Schiller announced that they were taking the headphone jack out of the iPhone? And everyone's like, boo! A year later, they all lost the headphone jack.
That was also because they were rearranging the internal componentry, I think, and basically were deciding to make room for something else. And that's something that they're famous for. I mean, it's why for a while, a lot of their products were sort of glued together a certain way as well, which meant they were inherently less repairable. But that's, yeah, you're making a case for actually that laptop being your favorite product instead of the iPhone.
I know. So what was yours?
Oh, I think, it's funny, I asked the question and then I'm like, oh, I kind of have two. I loved the first Apple Watch, and that's partly because I had been covering the wearable industry for a few years at that point, and I was very excited about it, but it was still a very small market. It really wasn't kind of reaching, like, the total addressable market was still very small. And then Apple burst onto the scene, and it was like, oh, this is the game changer. And I originally was not going to review the first Apple Watch because our friend Walt Mossberg, a mentor and friend of Joanna's and mine, was my boss at the time, and so he was going to review it, and a personal thing came up for him. Someone was unwell in his family, and he said, I was living in San Francisco, could you fly to New York, pick up my review unit of the Apple Watch where it's waiting for me, take it back to San Francisco and review it? And I thought, oh my God, yes. So I did. So I literally did. I flew to New York and got a little briefing with Apple and then flew back. And I remember being on the plane on the way back and someone saying, "Is that the iWatch?" And it was under embargo. So I was all, no. It just looks a lot like the renders you've seen all over the internet. And that was just with that video that you were showing. I will say, if I can indulge a little bit, my favorite experience reviewing a product, though it wasn't my favorite product, was the Apple Vision Pro. And that's partly because I had this very strange, admittedly, idea to review the Apple Vision Pro while watching the saddest movies known to man, just to see what it would be like to sob in the Apple Vision Pro. And for some reason, I haven't been given an Apple review product since then, but I learned a lot, and I encourage everyone to go read that on Wired.com.
It was a great story.
Thank you.
So the Vision Pro, I mean, the technology in that thing is insane. 5,000 patents. Is it a failure because it's heavy and uncomfortable and overpriced? Or is it a failure because there's nothing really to do with it?
Oh, I think the product is beautifully made. I think Apple accomplished much more with virtual reality than others have. I think categorically it's a mismatch, and we're seeing that now with Apple scaling back its efforts on the metaverse too. I just think it's been this kind of fever dream in Silicon Valley for decades now that VR is going to become mainstream, and I think there are a lot of interesting use cases for it, but I just don't see a world in which it's super mainstream.
You know, I have slides. And you bring up the one thing a lot of people said that they are not happy about is, okay, Steve, we are up. A lot of people said, who worked on the iPhone, we did not see the iPhone coming the way it was going to lead to depression and loneliness and isolation. That is something we'd like to fix. A bunch of people, Johnny Ive said the same thing. We know that he's now at OpenAI trying to work on a non-screen device, a pendant, a necklace, an earbud, something. And so is Apple. So these are smart glasses. These are, the one on the left is from Meta, the one on the right is from Google. The one on the left does not have screens in front of your eyes. The one on the right does. Apple is said to be working on both of these. The first one to come out will just have cameras and microphones and a speaker and processing and battery. And then later they'll have one with a screen. They're also working on making AirPods smarter. They're playing with putting a camera in it. Already they're adding medical stuff to it. It can take your pulse now in your ear. It'll become like, anyone see the movie Her? Yeah, it'll be kind of like that. But all of these things, the pendant, the ear thing, the glasses, are to eliminate the screen in your hand. Hands-free, eyes-free. So the question is, do we think that's it? Is that going to be, like Tim Cook has tried and tried and tried to do another Jobs-level platform. Like Jobs had these every 3 years, the iMac, the iPod, the iPhone, the iPad, iMovie, iPhoto, and not succeeded. I mean, he's had the watch and the AirPods, both accessories, right? The Vision Pro failed, the car, spent 10 years and $10 billion on the Apple car, didn't go anywhere. So like, do we think that maybe finally this will be it? Or will this also face a, yeah, but what's it for problem?
I mean, I think this is another accessory, full stop, but that's not a bad thing, right? This is the ultimate computer. This was the dream computer, I think, for Jobs. I mean, you might know, and I think you write a little bit about that in the book. But this has so much computing power in it now that those glasses you just showed, Meta, those are both from Meta. The thing that Meta's at a huge disadvantage of, I've reviewed both of those, is that they don't control this, right? This is why Meta has spent all this money right now to first try at the metaverse, because they wanted to control both the hardware and the software of that platform. And now they want to do that again with AR glasses or those glasses. And so I think for Apple, because they control this, and as you started at the beginning of this, what was it, 1.2 billion?
2.5 billion.
2.5 billion, which maybe we think, how many of those are iPhones?
Oh,
right?
2.2, yeah.
Yeah, right, okay. So they're gonna always have this lead as being the accessory, right? Making a device that has the power of this in any other form factor is going to be a very hard engineering feat for them.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be, I wear the Meta glasses, the sunglasses all the time. I live in them. So I'm obviously very excited for Apple to enter that space.
That's because, by the way, Joanna just launched her new company and has a deal with NBC. So she's very famous now. So she has to wear sunglasses all the time. And it's a burden, but I'm here for you.
And I so respect Kara Swisher, and I thought this is the way to be her. If I wear these sunglasses, I will have that success. Yes. And so that's what I've been trying to do with the Meta sunglasses. This is very inside baseball up here. But thank you for the plug. My book is coming out in May. I don't have them to sell here, and I did start.
And there it is. Look at the monitor.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Look at that. Where are the sunglasses?
I didn't wear them in the. Yeah.
That's a great cover.
To show I'm a human.
And what is the premise of the book?
Tonight.
The premise of the book is actually, it's funny, as much as I cover Apple, there's not a lot of Apple in this book because we're going to talk about this, but it's about in 2025, I tried to use AI in as many parts of my life as possible, and it follows the journey of the year of trying to use AI from everything from medical to self-driving cars to robotics to AI at work with obviously generative AI. If there was AI and a place to try it, I tried it.
Wow. I have a book too.
Oh.
And in my book, there's only 2 AI-generated things, and there are things they're pictures of things that no picture exists. Of course, I said it exists only in this AI recreation. One thing, Steve Jobs was brilliant, genius, visionary, volatile, but also a weird guy. So he had these ideas that you get all excited about, and one of them was as the 1 millionth iMac was about to roll off the factory line, he had this idea to bury in the 1 millionth box a golden ticket, like in Willy Wonka. And whoever found, and he was so excited, he had the ticket made. And he was so excited, the winner would get the iMac for free, would get flown to Cupertino to get a tour of the campus by Steve Jobs in a Willy Wonka costume. This is true. And so I made an AI-generated picture of him in the costume. Anyway, it ultimately, it turns out in California, when you do a sweepstakes, it has to say, no purchase required. So that killed the whole thing. But anyway, man, I've gotten some almost death level threat hate mail from young people who think that AI is so unequivocally evil. You should not use it for that. Shouldn't use it if it's labeled. You shouldn't use it for anything. It is inherently rotten. And this guy said, shame on you for putting that picture in the book. Comments, young people?
I must admit I haven't seen the photo. I'm intrigued, though.
It's Steve Jobs in a Willy Wonka costume.
And afterwards, when we all stand in line to buy your book and have you sign it, I'm going to be certain to look up that photo. I'm glad you brought up AI because I think AI is a big topic when it comes to Apple right now. The whole industry is, frothing over AI, and Apple is one of the companies that is perceived as sort of being behind the AI curve in terms of the amount of resources and investment that it's putting into it and the way that its AI and its apps are performing right now, particularly Siri. And just in terms of the fact that Apple doesn't seem to be too hasty in slapping its name on data centers, which honestly might turn out to be brilliant for them, TBD. And I'm curious, actually, how many people here, when it comes to AI, how many people are currently using AI?
You're all evil.
Okay,
please buy my book.
So I'm gonna correct it. I'm gonna fact check all of you. You're all using it. Every single one of you is using it. And that doesn't mean that you're pulling up Claude or ChatGPT and you're punching in a query. It means that if you took the subway to get here and you put it in Google Maps, you used AI. You've been using AI for a decade now. It was a different flavor of AI. It was machine learning. And so now we've just entered this generative era of AI based on these massive, massive data sets. And so it's just a different kind of it. And it's definitely more fraught in a lot of ways too. But I would actually say, and this might be a little bit of a controversial take, I think if you talk about generative AI in terms of work, in terms of enterprise, Apple's behind, because that's not really what Apple ultimately does. If you talk about generative AI in the consumer space, I still think how it's going to be used and the applications for that are still, pardon me, being sorted out. I mean, even today, OpenAI just said it's going to kill off its Sora app, which was video generation, because it's probably just going to be folded directly into its main app, its super app. But this is all still so early for consumer generative AI.
One thing I found really interesting about the small steps Apple has taken into AI, they didn't point this out. This is my own insight. Okay, so all the things that they have released, and I quoted you in the book, is saying it's all kind of silly. It is kind of silly, the image playground, But one thing they do, they avoided all the nasty things about AI. So for example, image playground will only make cartoon characters. It won't make anything photorealistic because Apple doesn't want to be in the business of encouraging deepfakes. The writing tools, they'll summarize something or they'll rewrite something to be more formal or less formal, but it won't write for you. They don't want kids cheating. So they actually done all these kind of cool things that are kind of cool. What they really botched, though, was the smarter Siri, the Siri that knows everything in your email. Steve, I've got a picture here. So 2 years ago, she got on stage at WWDC. She did the most compelling demo of AI I've ever seen. She asked Siri, what time do I need to leave to pick up my mom? And Siri knows everything that's in her email, so it knows that your mom's coming for Thanksgiving. It knows everything in her text messages, so it knows the flight number. It goes to FlightAware and looks up the flight if it's late. It goes to Apple Maps, looks up the traffic. And in a fraction of a second, it says, you need to leave at 1:30 or whatever. And do you know Apple's stock value went up $200 billion that day? It was the most exciting thing. You still can't say, to any AI, you still can't say, what's the last flight home from Chicago on Friday? There's a lot of basic stuff. But man, if it knew your whole life. So just yesterday they announced that we think 2 years later they're going to unveil this in June. So that'd be really cool.
Yes, I think, Lauren, you made so many good points about we don't know what the consumer unlock for AI is. And we can let Apple slide on that. They've done a lot of good things and adding those guardrails within iOS 26 or prior to that. But the promise of Siri is a promise that is over a decade now. And so every morning I get up and ask my HomePod, I'm going to say it, hey Siri, play NPR Morning News. You guys, Siris are now going to go off. But you'll see that Siri never fucking does it, right? Siri plays some random song, and I just want Siri, like, why do I need to know the exact name of the NPR podcast that Siri needs to play? I just got up, I just want to brush my teeth, put my contacts in, and hear the news, Siri. And so we shouldn't be giving Apple a pass on this. That, at minimum, should be fixed, right? Better natural language processing. And I remember reading, David, all your reviews. There was a reader of the Dragon Naturally Speaking reviews. It was me, okay? I mean, everyone was reading those, right? Like, David was, really, you were really ahead on the natural language and communicating with computers with our voices before the entire industry was on it. So.
I had wrist issues in the late 90s. So naturally speaking, for the Mac, it was called Power Secretary. I paid $2,500 for this floppy disk and a Chinese headset. And the difference was in those days, you had to separate words. I mean, I spend a day writing my column that way, and then, like, my girlfriend would come home and be like, how was work, honey? Oh. I was like, so the fact that you can talk smoothly and it'll even put the punctuation for you.
Right, but like Apple was ahead on a lot of this technology, right? Yeah. And we are still here. I am still here. This morning, that happened to me. It was a long time ago this morning. Wow. It happens to me every morning.
Yeah. I mean...
And that whether they get this right in the June or come out in September, I'm hoping. They've made a lot of promises. I've done a lot of interviews with them around this, and I do have a lot of faith that they're going to get it right. But at the very minimum, a Siri that understands some very basic things is necessary.
You got the interview with those guys, with Federighi and Jaws, right when all this AI hullabaloo was happening. And I know what I thought of the interview, but as you know, Apple PR is a force of nature, right? Those guys were coached to within an inch of their lives. So how far did you get in getting meaningful answers from them?
Well, you said you know what you thought of the interview,
yeah,
so that's all I want to know.
I want to know what you thought.
I think they were on an apology tour, right? They were on an apology tour for that woman announcing something that didn't ship. Yeah. The backstory, for those who didn't follow as closely for us, is that came out in 2025 WWDC. Was it 2024 WWDC? That's right. Sorry, time. WWDC 2024, they make this whole fuss. They do a great big show of how Siri's going to work. And they say it's coming in the next operating system. It doesn't show up in the next operating system. And they say, sorry, we didn't get it right. And this is very unusual for Apple, right? To show something in a demo and then say, sorry, it's not ready. And so they were on this apology tour to say, look, we needed more time. Our products need to meet a certain quality, as they really did need to do. And they also made a point to say we did have a working version. We did not we did not fool anyone. We really
didn't fake the demo.
Yeah, we didn't fake the demo. But I got on them because, you see, I feel very passionate about Siri. I just want Siri to work. Yeah. And so you see me in the interview say, I literally point and I say, you're Apple. Look at this place. Why can't you figure out Siri? Like, right? Like, I think I was speaking, I wasn't thinking about channeling everyone, but I felt in a way I was channeling everyone's frustrations about Siri in that interview. Yeah. And, I believe Craig Federighi that they're working to get it right now.
I mean, part of it is they've had all kinds of turnover in their AI. So, A, they were late. B, they've underinvested in all those NVIDIA graphics cards. But C, Meta, Facebook, is on this rampage to hire all the top people. So they offered one of Apple's AI engineers $200 million for a 5-year contract to leave. And Apple's philosophy is look, if that's you, man, go for it. We believe something. We're a company with soul. We have a mission. We have a purpose. If it's just about money, Godspeed. But now, I don't know. Was that smart? Should they have said 220 million?
I don't know if it's necessarily about the compensation package. I mean, it is certainly going to be for some talent, but I think the way that AI research is working and has worked traditionally, and that is that it tends to be pretty open. It's people collaborating on papers and collaborating on research and then publishing their findings. And I mean, a lot of people probably know this already, but the T in ChatGPT stands for transformer, which was actually a paper that was written by Google researchers. So that's kind of how the industry works. And Apple has always famously been very siloed, very private, very secretive about what they're working on, and even people who work within the same company don't necessarily know what their colleagues are working on. And so sometimes I wonder if just culturally they really need to adopt a different approach as it comes to actually making their AI better.
Glad you brought that up. The guy, John Krakauer, who pushed the keyboard up against the screen, he said to make sure that he knew what he was doing, after hours, when everyone had gone home and the lights were out, he built a model of this thing. It was tethered to a Power Mac, so it didn't have any guts. It was just the layout of the keyboard and the screen and the trackball. And he would have other employees from other departments come in to sort of beta test his model. How big should the trackball be? Should the clicker buttons be below it, above it, or both? And so on. And he had 45 different people give their feedback, and then he presented it to Apple Design, and they thought, that looks really weird, but we love it. And that was it. So he said at the end of that interview, the sad thing is that I never could do that today. Apple is so siloed. You have to be badged in to a building, to a room. You have to be badged into certain meetings and certain parts of meetings. Like they'll say, okay, you're in for the first 20 minutes and then you leave. What he did, that free-flowing interdisciplinary thing never could happen today. So positive, negative being giant.
And I wonder, too, you also talk to people at Apple and you hear about the yearly upgrade cycle and the push. I did this a piece on the 15th anniversary of the iPhone, the push every year to have a new iPhone, but also have a new operating system, have that new iOS, right? It's, for me now, reviewing iOS continues to be the highlight of the year because it's the piece of software that touches the most people in the world at this point. Android, obviously Android too. But I think that pressure, and I think this is what you're getting at a little bit, David, about the change in the company culture and the growth of this company, they need those yearly, right? That's shareholder value, that's the company. And so what we saw, I think, with that Siri situation, and I tried to get in that interview, but I think it is likely the outgrowth is that they pushed that, right? They wanted to get that into that release. They wanted it to get it into that WWDC keynote and get that yearly thing, and it just wasn't ready.
Yeah.
Right? And so there's that pressure to ship. Obviously, they do ship when things are ready, but there's that pressure to keep shipping, that pressure to keep iterating, so there is that product every year.
So we've been talking for 15 minutes about software issues. One thing I hear a lot in conversations I've been having with fans about Apple is they don't do those cool new iProducts every 3 years like Jobs does. And so I want to get back to this notion of, there are all these articles in your publications that say, has Apple lost its hardware mojo? How come they can't invent the next killer platform? And I have two theories on that. One is they've lost their hardware mojo. Tim Cook is not, oh my God, is he not Steve Jobs? He is the anti-Steve Jobs. Jobs was loud and volatile, an idea man and a showman. Tim Cook is shy and quiet and reserved and steely, never raises his voice, right? Not a product guy. He never went to visit Johnny Ive's design studio. Jobs was there every single day. So, but he never pretended to be. He's like, that's not why I was hired, right? I'm a logistics guy, a supply guy, a numbers guy. So is it that they're not capable anymore? Or, let me blow y'all's minds, is it that Steve Jobs happened to come along at this incredible global Venn diagram of miniaturization of electronics made cheaply by China, combined with the arrival of an era when we were no longer intimidated by technology, and we were ready to embrace brand new devices and welcome them into our lives? Discuss.
I'm really trying to think if there's a third option here, but I would tend to think the latter, honestly. I think that what we have witnessed over the past, well, for Apple it's 50 years, but consumer internet is closer to 30 to 40 years. That Venn diagram that you're describing of the miniaturization of electronics and componentry and chips, I mean, semiconductors didn't really exist in their modern form until like the 60s and 70s, plus the consumer internet, plus the mobile revolution, and all of it happening when you had this assemblage of talent at Apple, and that they were able to basically do what they did with the iPod and then the iPhone. I think it's this really incredible convergence of events that's, I mean, maybe we won't see again in our technological lifetimes. Maybe with generative AI, something will happen. I think that's actually more than likely. I also, for what it's worth, tend to be pretty bullish on self-driving cars because I take Waymos a lot in San Francisco, and I honestly think they're pretty amazing. But to finish the point, I think right now, if Apple has not created, or a Google or a Meta, all these resources have not been able to really create the next major platform, then maybe that next major platform just doesn't exist right now. I mean, maybe it's not meant to exist right now.
Right. Nobody else has done a Jobs level invention either. Yeah, that's profound.
What do you think?
It's funny to me how many times big tech companies try to will something into existence, like the whole metasphere, where we were all going to live virtually inside their stupid glasses. Like you guys and I were probably like, nope.
Yeah, and also cut off at the waist, right? We were all going to be.
Nobody had feet.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else to say other than, David, do you remember when Steve Jobs came back to Apple?
You don't know this, but that's a cue for me to go to the piano.
Good job.
All right, so thank you for bringing that. What did we say, $50?
Yes,
Okay.
$50. But that was just, profound thought about, remember when he came back to Apple?
All right, so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to go to the piano. I used to be a Broadway conductor. I spent 10 years in orchestra pits, okay? So I do this thing where I write parody lyrics to old songs, and I have 2 of them about Apple, if you'd like to hear. Like you had a choice.
So you do remember when he came back to Apple?
Yeah, I do remember Jobs going back. And then we're going to take your questions, but before I go, Joanna has hinted at this through this conversation, but I think you should make a formal public announcement. You have been with the Wall Street Journal since 2014, but I think it's safe to say we will be seeing less of you at the Wall Street Journal.
Yes. Well, thank you, David, for that on the stage. I did leave the Wall Street Journal almost 6 weeks ago now. A lot has happened in 6 weeks, but I'm starting my own company. It's called thenewthings.com, so everyone can go to thenewthings.com and sign up for newsletters, and we're going to have some videos that, again, have some of the old spirit of David Pogue. No singing. There will be 0 singing.
What's even the point?
No, you do not want to hear me sing. There will be no sleep fairies. I have moved beyond that role as a sleep fairy, unless you'd like to be cast.
As a singing fairy?
Yes.
Talk to my agent.
And so I would look forward to continuing to do a lot of the same kind of coverage I was doing at the Journal, just doing it on YouTube and doing it on newsletters and beyond.
You're getting out while the getting's good.
Yeah, that's hopefully.
Because AI can never do what you guys do.
Well, that's why there's a book about that called I'm Not a Robot that also comes out in May.
I'm just learning from the best over here.
This is just
You
a
guys are
sales
so good at
conference.
this. I love this.
All right, couple of songs? All right. So Joanna mentioned the immortal event when Steve Jobs, who'd been gone from Apple for 11 years, returned in 1997. Company was 6 weeks from bankruptcy. He turned the whole thing around, fired the board, fired the ad agencies, eliminated 75% of the products. I was at the Macworld Expo where he came back, and I had just seen the movie Evita with Madonna, and Jobs in his black turtleneck, and he was like, And I'm like, where have I seen this before? It won't be easy, you'll think I'm strange when I try to explain why I'm back after telling the press Apple's future is black. You won't believe me, all that you see is a kid in his teens who started out in a garage with only a buddy named Woz. You try rhyming with garage. Don't cry for me, Cupertino. The truth is I never left you. I know the ropes now, know what the tricks are. I made a fortune over at Pixar. Don't cry for me, Cupertino. I've still got the drive and vision. I still wear sandals in any weather. It's just that these days, they're Gucci leather. Thank you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, our grand finale, a new song parody written just for this book promotion stuff, with great apologies to Pharrell. Instead of, because I'm happy, this one's, because it's Apple. Okay, all right, hit it, Steve. It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Apple at 50, almost to the day. Are you a real fan? How do you know? I got news, there are certain clues, baby, here we go. Clap along if you feel machines should be made with hearts. Clap along if you feel like aluminum is art. Clap along if you plug in 12 gadgets every night. Clap along if you're proud that your chargers all are white. Here come bad news so you understand. It's not always easy being such a fan. Wintel is everywhere, it's super cheap. But who wants to be a corporate sheep? Clap along if you've never thrown away a box. Got a special closet just for dongles, cords, and docks. Clap along if you bought that stand for $1,000. Clap along if you feel that Siri still kinda sucks. I don't feel down when they raise the price. I don't feel down using pucky mice. I don't feel down because AI is late, or when an AirPod falls down a grate. I don't feel down updating nonstop. I don't feel down when I can't AirDrop. I don't feel down that I've got the notch and a half-day charge on my Apple Watch. Clap along if you dump your friends whose texts show up in green. Clap along if you spent $19 to wipe your screen. Clap along if you're in line when a new phone rolls around. Clap along if your cordless mouse charges upside down. Clap along if it's better to be best than to be first. Clap along if you know that Windows is the worst. Clap along if rounded corners always make you hide. Clap along if you will bleed 6 colors till you die.
That was delightful.
Next time, you guys get backup vocal parts.
We're working on a dance.
Joanna really wanted to chime in on the Siri part. I don't know if you knew that. She has
I
thoughts
clapped.
on Siri. Yeah.
I clapped.
We have time for some questions, if you have them and they are of general interest. And be sure to raise your hand and we will answer it. Yes, right in the middle, yell it out, and then I'll repeat the question. No, I've called on her. No, just kidding. You can yell it out. I'll repeat it.
We've got a special Apple-made microphone coming your way. The iMic.
Oh, we have mics in the aisles. I get it now. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you.
Hi, and thanks everyone for your time today. And David, congrats on the book. So my question is about Apple Intelligence. They have a chance to redeem themselves later this year, but thus far it's kind of been a flop, right? We have liquid glass and Genmoji, and my phone auto-updated to the liquid glass, and I don't really like it. So for the next iteration of Apple, the Siri Intelligence, they're choosing to partner with Google to integrate Gemini because they, like you guys mentioned, they haven't been very aggressively investing in AI. So as Joanna mentioned, right, like Gmail is better on like Google phones. I'm sure Gemini is better on Google phones. So I'm curious to hear what you guys think is the strategy behind that specific choice.
You know, I have a concern about this whole Apple Intelligence thing, especially incorporating Gemini. Apple as a company does not generally release products that sort of work. And what the public is asking them to do is to embrace generative AI, which only sort of works. I mean, 20%, maybe more percent of your ChatGPT questions, the answer is just made up, hallucinated, wrong. You know, and like, what's gonna happen the first time someone with an iPhone gets a wrong medical advice or an ingredient left out of the recipe, not equivalent examples. But you know, I gotta wonder if that's part of why Apple is taking so long. How do you use the power of generative AI without giving people bad information? And I mean, it could be a train wreck. So I don't wish I could be Tim Cook right now. I mean, it's just a no-win situation.
I think I hear you on that point, but I think if you look at the top charts of the App Store, almost every week right now, there's a generative AI app at the top of the App Store. And that doesn't mean Apple's always done that, right? Apple hasn't gone after social media, hasn't gone after search engines, though we know they had some aspirations to do that. But I think they do see the data, and I think they do see the data of people talking to their chatbots or asking their chatbots things all the time. And I think the hope was that Siri was going to be that at some point. And so if this is the route they have to take, this is the route they have to take. And I think it makes sense that it be Google, given the relationship of the two companies and given the state of the country, where it doesn't matter who partners at this point.
Right.
Seemed obvious.
I don't know the details, but I think what you're asking is the right question. And if this is in any way comparable to Apple's existing relationship with Google for search and the way that Google search is empowering Safari for all the however many years it's been now, you know, hard to say, but if it replicates that, then basically it's still going to have an Apple skin over the experience. It's going to be sandboxed for privacy in a certain way. And like functionally, you know, Chrome is different from Safari, even if Google search is powering both, right? So it'll be interesting to see how Apple puts its Apple-y spin on that model.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hi, David. So if, as you suggest, there either isn't the Apple culture left to come up with the next really big thing, or the next really big thing doesn't exist at all, why is Apple so damn financially successful? Is there that much value in some creative tweaks to the next phone, pad, whatever, that keeps their market cap and stock price so high?
You know, I would have said, yeah, I agree with you. They just keep milking that same cow, right? Another new iPhone, more pixels, whatever. And then the MacBook Neo happened. This is this new laptop released 2 weeks ago, gorgeous, $600. That is cheaper than the iPhone for a laptop. I mean, you lose a few little things like the keyboard doesn't have light up letters. There's no fingerprint sensor unless you want to pay another $100. But they cannot keep it in stock. Every student, everyone, people are calling it a burner Mac. like a second, junk around, knock around laptop to have in the kitchen, to have, or to run some dangerous AI thing on that doesn't pollute the rest of your network. It is, have you guys played with it? It's fantastic.
No, see, they don't give me products anymore.
I just gave
David,
it to my
like I
kids.
said.
Yeah,
What's that?
I'm a great parent. I just gave it to my kids.
Yeah, you just gave it to your kid. Yeah. But I mean, it's running on an iPhone chip. And everyone's like, oh, you'll never be able to edit video on that thing. You can. You can. Like 4K videos, 5 of them at once. It tells you how powerful the chip in your phone really is.
And ultimately that just becomes a delivery mechanism then for services, which is it's been a growing business for them for a while. And then also they'll still probably manage to sell some much higher priced items to the enthusiast crowd, which ultimately pushes up the ARPU, the average revenue per unit on those devices. So it's like, this is why I'm not a math person or an accountant. There's a lot of complicated accounting that comes with that too, but I mean, I think that's part of the strategy for why they've maintained their financial success.
So I guess what I'm saying is, even though the premise has been services and accessories and milking what they already had, every now and then that leads to something truly great. And this Neo is just, I mean, every cheap Dell netbook, Chromebook maker on the planet is going, oh God, right now, because this thing's gonna eat their lunch.
And I would say one thing when we were talking before I wanted to plug and I didn't get in, but we haven't talked about iDevices. They haven't come up with one of those, but the M chip that came out in 2020 absolutely revolutionized the Mac business. And that was not done in the planning of when Steve Jobs was alive. That was done far post, and that is a Tim Cook innovation.
Yep.
I mean, that is a full vertical stack innovation that was pioneered by Cook and his team. And that completely changed the Mac lineup. And I think we'll see in more devices. I mean, it was in the Vision Pro. We'll see where it could go. But I think the innovation they've done in chips is another huge reason we've seen a lot of market success.
I wish I'd thought of that answer.
As a stockholder who bought in 1996, that makes me feel better.
I have a question for y'all about the world's most expensive cheese grater, the Mac Pro. Apple skipped over it with the M3 Ultra, but when they release the M5, M6, or M7 Ultra, do you think they will either refresh it or give it a chimp bump, or have they shifted all their attention to the studio?
I read yesterday that they might just phase out the Mac Pro. I mean, you're right, it's been years, and it's stuck on what, the M2 chip?
Yeah, M2 Ultra.
Yeah, M2 Ultra. They're really not paying attention to that, and they're putting all their emphasis on the high end into this Mac Studio. So you're right, it does not seem like they're very enthusiastic about it. There's something really weird going on. When I finished this book, my wife said, you can buy anything you want to celebrate. It can be a new car, you can get a new MacBook Pro, you can get anything you want. You know what I wanted? Ben & Jerry's Americone Dream. That's literally what we bought that night. But then yesterday, I bought a new monitor because my old LG monitor got a crack in it. It was not usable. And to my astonishment, they replaced the expensive, advanced, beautiful monitor, the Pro display, with an even better one now called the Studio display. They are getting rid of Pro. So what that means for high-end gentlemen like you, I don't know.
Obviously, there's a lot of press about the failures of Apple's consumer AI and Apple Intelligence, but I think maybe something that's a little underreported in the mainstream is the strength of their local AI with Apple Intelligence and with MLX, and especially on the pros and studios with the Max and Ultra chip, how strong that is. It's kind of weird because their consumer AI is kind of so weak. Do you think there's an inflection point where the strength of the chips running local models, where the strength of their local AI kind of converges and actually helps their consumer AI become better and become up to par with the competition?
I just met with Adobe. Actually, I think that was an off-the-record conversation. Anyway, I did just meet with Adobe. I've said it now. I met with them last week. And we were talking a lot about local models. And I think that the strength in local models is obviously the privacy and the cell there. I was talking about how I wanted on-device PDF analysis because these are really private documents and I wouldn't want them going to some cloud. And so I think that the more that consumers are aware of the privacy benefits, then there's benefit to Apple in the consumer space. Like, it's such a great point about Apple's strength in local models, and Apple makes that point a lot in press briefings and on stage in their keynotes about the local models, and that these are really AI-built machines, but obviously the software that the consumers are interacting with are just not Apple focused. So if they can sell that more, I think that there really is a good consumer story for them there.
Let's see if I can do this really fast. Private cloud compute. So Apple's all about privacy, right? Because Google sells ads, Facebook sells ads. Apple is not in the ad business. So they can emphasize how private your data is. Nothing leaves the phone. So when it comes to AI, some of the hardest problems have to be sent to the internet, to servers for processing. So how can Apple continue to promise that your data is completely safe if there's transmitting it to these servers? So they invented this thing last year called private cloud compute. It basically means they've created these server farms where they said, yes, we'll process your AI requests in these servers, but then we'll erase all trace of it. We won't remember what you asked. We won't remember what the answer is. Trust us. And so like everyone's like, yeah, sure, we've met big tech companies before. And they're like, no, no, no. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to let anyone come and inspect these servers. We will let you pour through the code. It's never been, and if you find that we're not doing what we say we're doing, we'll give you $1 million. So like that's how much they believe that they're truly keeping your stuff private, even if it has to go to the servers. No one's ever done anything like this. It's pretty, I think it's pretty cool.
Hello. Hi. Hey. Okay, so a little bit off topic, but related. So I was an intern. I definitely drank the apple juice as a kid, right?
Can you get a little bit closer to the mic?
Oh, sorry about that.
Does it go up? Do you want to raise it?
No, I'll just go down.
Okay.
I drank the apple juice as a kid, right? I was an Apple intern a few years ago in design on Marcom. Went to Cupertino. You know, I like to call the Apple building the Pentagon with rounded edges, right? They're very secure. I'm young. I just graduated. We see AI. I want to address the big Palantir-shaped elephant in the room. Peter Thiel and all these things. We see this technology as threatening. We see it as really scary, right? We see an illegal war being prosecuted. We see a genocide happening, all on the back of AI and data farms. These data farms are being blown up as we speak. Convince me AI is not going to destroy my life.
You want us to convince you it's not going to destroy your life? Sorry, I can't do that. No, you bring up some really amazing points, and I'm glad you did, because we're obviously reminiscing in a largely positive way about the impact that technology like Apple's tech has had on our lives, but there have been a lot of downsides as well. And Palantir is something that we write about a lot at Wired, in the way that they're basically collating data on people and selling it to entities, including the government, that you're not really sure. Well, they say they don't sell the data, but they basically package it together in a way that makes it readily accessible to people. And I think with any artificial intelligence system, that should absolutely be a concern. We obviously are seeing Anthropic get into a whole showdown with the Pentagon right now over whether or not its technology can actually be used in a safe way if it's deployed in defense. I think that you as an individual will have some agency over how you use AI. I can't promise total agency. I don't think any of us can. And what applications you choose to use and which services you choose to support and spend your money on. And I think a lot of us also have agency as citizens and as consumers to speak out loudly and collectively against technology that we find to be harmful. And I really think that sometimes that's the only stopgap measure we have right now.
When I was growing up, one of the big fears was the ozone hole. So there are 3 kinds of ultraviolet light coming from the sun. There's A and B, which you can use sunscreen for, and then there's C, which will kill you and every living thing on Earth. The only thing that protects us is a layer of ozone, O3, in the atmosphere. Turned out in the 80s, and our spray cans and our air conditioners were eating the ozone above us. And there was this giant hole growing, and it was going to kill every living thing on Earth. So every country, only time in history that every country in the entire world, 190 countries, got together because they were so worried, and they passed the only entire global treaty that's ever existed. And they banned the use of the chlorofluorocarbons. As of this year, the ozone hole has closed. So I feel like AI is terrifying. It's going to do devastating numbers to jobs. Not that everyone will lie on their couch watching Netflix drunk all day. It's just that the jobs will change, right? But I do believe that when things threaten humankind enough, people rise up and they do something about it. And I think that'll happen here too. Oh, she's going like this. I think that means we're done. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Happy to sign some books.
Buy David's book. This is a book event.